Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Real Life Practice Podcast. It is great to be back with you in a new series that we've been diving into on the word hospitality. If you're not familiar with our podcast, Lindsay and I host it every couple of weeks, and we take a spiritual practice that you can lean into and give you some tools and a definition and just have some conversations for 3 or 4 weeks around that particular practice. And right now, we're talking about hospitality. So, welcome in, Lindsay. Yeah, let's begin our conversation.
Well, today we want to focus on a specific aspect of hospitality. But before we get into the specific topic, we wanted to revisit kind of the definition of hospitality as a spiritual practice. Because as we talked about in our introduction episode last week, you may have certain things that come to mind with that word. And so we want to talk about it not just in that general sense, but what does it mean to practice it as a spiritual practice? So we take this definition, as we often do, from Adele Calhoun's Spiritual Disciplines Handbook. And the way she defines it is that hospitality creates a safe, open space where a friend or stranger can enter and experience the welcoming spirit of Christ in another. Another way she puts that is offering the welcome of Jesus to any and all. So I love how she just makes that distinction that it really is about welcoming others into a space where Jesus is present with us and helping them to feel safe and seen and known. And that could have many different expressions. But today we want to talk about what does this look like around the table? Because that is a space that when we think of hospitality, it seems like a very natural environment to practice hospitality together.
Yeah, when you brought this up as let's talk about being around the table, there were a few things that came to mind to me. And I think we automatically go to, oh, so I'm going to have people over. I'm going to do, I'm going to invite guests, all that. And we want to talk about that. But I think the first place that my heart goes to is how are you creating an environment of hospitality for your own family? And I know in our culture, the busy lives that we live and where we live, comings and goings, and depending on season of life, gathering around your own table in your home could be difficult. Many times I've walked into homes and again, I'm not shaming if this is what your table looks like, but the dining room table or the kitchen table has become the catch-all for books and backpacks and things. And when it comes time for gathering, it's get a paper plate, grab something out of the cabinet, and we go eat in front of the television, or we eat out of a to-go box in the car, or those types of things. And I am guilty as charged, especially in the raising of my daughter. My kids were 10 years apart. So with my son, I always felt like we did more sitting at the table, having a meal together. But I would say, and I've actually apologized to my daughter for this, because I think some of it then shows up in her own life of how she eats and what she does. Hospitality to your own family. What's it look like to have your family sit down at least 2 or 3 times a week on a rhythm, on a regular basis? Maybe it's the Sunday night meal. Maybe it's we always eat together on Thursday nights or whatever, but just that invitation to set the table, put a glass out, eat with real silverware, have a sharing time. I was recently, just this past weekend, Lindsay, at Dick and Sybil Towner, some of my dearest friends. We just interviewed them on the podcast. And when you sit at Sybil's table, you're always going to hold hands and have a prayer. You're probably going to have a reading, a short blessing prayer that might be read out of a book, but it's that slowing that's invited through hospitality. I'm in a season of life, and you might talk about this with your own family, but I'm in a season of life where Dale and I do eat at our table much more often because even for us, it's a time to share back and forth, just the two of us, about our day, about our week, to linger around the table with maybe some coffee and a piece of chocolate or whatever it might be. In the evening, we might eat outside if it's summertime and sit out at our patio table. But I'm also trying to create a rhythm of hospitality to invite my daughter and her husband and my little grandson to eat, because that's something they are in a busy season. And so sometimes it's just like, hey, why don't you guys come over and have a meal with us? Because they live close by. and I'll do the cooking because I like to cook. So what does it mean, like, if we're gathering around a table, starting in our own home with our own family? So what's that feel like for you as you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's something that we are it comes and fits and starts and stops.
Yeah.
We have seasons where we're doing really well at it. And like you said, we're sitting at the table multiple nights a week and having conversations. And then there's seasons where it is everyone's kind of going in different directions. We might be in front of the TV, just like you said, being honest, like we sometimes we do this well, sometimes we don't. But I think it's something that I love that you mentioned. Like, what does it look like to do it maybe 2 or 3 nights a week? Like, what are the consistent rhythms? Consistent doesn't have to mean every day. And
Well,
so
just
I
know that
noticed,
just, it doesn't have to always be, oh, every Wednesday. I need to like create those rhythms, but it's not about the expectation. It's about, creating, even teaching. I know you have 2 girls, teaching them. What does that look
Mhm.
like to prepare a meal and be hospitable to one another?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've noticed when we sit at the table, there are some, and I think having realistic expectations, there are some nights at the table that it's pure chaos and everyone's talking over each other. And it's just like, okay, well, that, we did it, it happened. And then there's times when it opens up a space for a deeper conversation, a question one of the kids might ask, or we might share what was good about your day, what was hard about your day. And so, but doing it often enough opens up the space and the opportunity for those conversations to happen, even if it doesn't go to a deep place every single time, and that's okay.
Like, and that, even a part of, I would say, conversations around a table, and there's so many different ways we can take this down rabbit holes, and we won't today, but, it's okay if the conversation is hard too, because it shows your family unit, whatever that is. Even Dale and I can have a hard conversation sometimes at the table, that this is a safe space to bring it, which is a hospitable action, is you have to open up the space sometimes for that. I think when it goes well, when you can gather on, we're obviously talking about evening time, when you can gather at a table and be hospitable to your family, I do think there's a shift in the whole evening that happens that sets up well. So I think the gift of hospitality around a table, and we'll talk about some other ways outside of your home, but can set up other parts of the day well because you've been welcomed.
Mm.
And so let's talk about some other places that we might do this. We talked about a couple seasons of life too, as we were talking about that. But before we go to other places, let's talk about the invitation to others. Many times when we think about hospitality, we think, oh, we have to have people in our homes. We have to invite others over. We've kind of got rid of that myth. Yes, it could just be your own family. But what about inviting people? What do you have about that, Lens?
So a couple things. I think first of all, having the regular practice as a family might make it easier to invite others in because you're
Yeah,
just
good
inviting
point.
them to join you in something you're already doing. And so instead of seeing it as a separate event, it's how do I include others into this practice that we've already developed as a family? And I think too, it can look different ways. As we talked about, there are some of you listening who absolutely love creating a tablescape and making an involved meal and having it feel really special. And that can be such a gift to people. I love when I go somewhere and it's clear they've put an effort and it feels special, it feels different, and I love that. It
Mhm.
also can look really simple. If you are not someone who loves cooking, honestly, it could look like ordering some pizzas and sitting at the table with pizzas. Like that, it can be as simple as that. There's different ways that this can look based on your wiring, and it brings a different presence to people. Sometimes the over the top special might make someone feel uncomfortable. Maybe they would feel more welcomed with something low key. There's not one right or wrong way to do it. There are so many different ways that we can help people feel welcome in a way that aligns with who we are and doesn't feel like this pressure to perform or to be someone that we're not.
I think another way is if you're going to have people over, and that's what you're going to do, take the pressure off yourself of let them bring something. If it's a meal, even if you're just inviting somebody over for coffee on your porch, like if they say, "Oh, I'll bring muffins," go, "Okay, that'd be great." Because when there's participation, I think everyone's guard kind of goes down and the expectation is off a little bit. let people help prepare. That's something, again, I learned a lot about hospitality from my friend Sybil. And, never have I been there where she doesn't go, why don't you go ahead and cut up the tomatoes? Or why don't you get the salad ready or whatever? Because the conversation that happens in the preparation is as much a part of the feeling of hospitality as then sitting down and eating the meal together. But if you have that expectation was, I have to have everything done before they came, and I've got to have the dishes cleaned, and I've got to have it all done. You kind of robbed everyone of the experience of going deeper and feeling safe because they have a kitchen just like you do, and they have a table just like you do. And so everything does it. There are times when that's great to go all out and, take the pressure off and they just get to come in and sit down. But so many times, some of my best moments in conversation with others is to let them participate. So if our goal of hospitality is to come together for deeper conversation, for deeper connection, and we say, you go sit down over there and I'm going to be over here, we just disconnected rather than inviting them in or say, well, you go sit in the living room. I'll finish getting things. It takes me to the story of Mary and Martha, right? Like, you go sit over here and I'll be over here. And like, what does it look like to come together around the table, around the preparation, if it's going to be food? They want to bring the pizza. Let them bring the pizza. Let them bring the salad, the drinks, whatever. Yeah. Our church does something, Lindsay, and we could talk about that. But I think it's really cool in the summertime. I'm not even sure what we call it. I can't remember. But dinner parties is kind of what they are. And it's a way for us to connect with others that we may not know in a larger church. People sign up if they want to be invited, and people sign up if they want to host. And you just get together and you can decide, do you want to eat out? Do you want to go to someone's home? Do you want to, pick up pizzas? Like, how do you want to come together? Because it's not about the food, it's about the gathering in a space together.
Yeah, and I love how that creates just a less formal environment for connection. Because so often we think when we're creating community that we need to join a Bible study or a small group, and those are great things too. But it's that idea that we can simply sit around the table together and have a conversation. It doesn't have to be structured, it doesn't have to be led by somebody. It can just be sitting around the table and asking genuine questions to get to know one another and just be part of each other's lives to I know when we did our dinner party, all our kids were there. And so it was loud and noisy. But that was just part of it was here's us in our real life in someone else's home. And it's just, we're bringing all of this and we're just, and that's enough. It doesn't have to be planned or structured. It was enough just to be together around the table.
So I would say at this point, we'd invite you to start with your own family, whatever that looks like. Practice there. If you have children in your home, helping them be a part of, even so that you're ready when you want to invite somebody over. Like, they know how to set the table or get the drinks ready, or then they're learning how to be, greet people at the door and be hospitable. There's so many things that are learning experiences. And then if you're a couple like Dale and I are, a little bit more in the openness season, what role do each of us want to play in having others over around our table? And there, you might want to think ahead of time, like, are you going to read something together and to start the conversation? Or is there a question that you want to come around? One of the things I've learned in hospitality too is, and this goes in all kinds of relationships, but have one conversation if possible. So what happens many times if you gather two or three couples together, for example, and lots of kids, you start talking to the person right beside you, and you're kind of halfway going, oh, I'd love to hear what they're saying over there, because that connects to me too. So, and I've seen this modeled so beautifully over the years, and I've led this over the years. Like, what's one question that everybody could answer to get to know one another? No matter whether you know each other well, you'll go deeper with one question, and then everybody listens. And it takes a little bit of loose facilitation, but it is so beautiful when you can have that. You can do that with your own family. Here's the question we're going to talk about tonight. Here's what I'm going to ask, instead of how was your day? Like, how could I phrase that differently? So hospitality is not just the act of, your family are inviting, there's a deeper experience and value that comes from these table conversations.
So something we wanted to mention too is, we're talking a lot about around the table in our homes, which is a beautiful place to be. But maybe for whatever reason that doesn't work for you or you don't feel comfortable with that. And maybe even a first step is to think about other tables that you could invite others to be around. So that could be at a restaurant, that could be just with one other person at a coffee shop, but just to think about what does it look like to gather around food and conversation in different environments that if home, if you're not ready for that, or if for whatever reason that doesn't feel like a good step for you, think of other tables that you could gather around. And that works too.
Absolutely. Good coffee shops. Everybody loves a good coffee shop experience. Gather at the park, gather at, an outdoor venue, state park or a place you can walk. Hospitality is much about the invitation as it is the location.
Mm.
I mean, it's the experience that you took the time to invite someone into your home, into a restaurant, to a coffee shop. And I would say this too, this is a crazy little thing, but just because you invite them to coffee or restaurant doesn't mean you have to buy. Doesn't mean, like just because you're the inviter doesn't mean you can if you want to be that hospitable. But there's not much to a cup of coffee and a muffin that someone can't, say yes. Or you'll go pick it up and meet them at a park if you want a little bit more private location. Some people love the hubbub of a coffee shop and all that going on. I find sometimes if I go into our local places, my conversation with that person that I wanted to meet with gets interrupted because we both see other people we know. So just something to think about of, yeah, what do I how private, how personal do I want this conversation to be if we're going to be out in public as well?
Yeah. Well, Teresa, I know that you recently decided to practice hospitality at your home, at your farm in a new way. And I've loved hearing about your heart for that. And so, would you share with us a little bit what that's about? Because there might be
Yeah.
people that are even interested in being part of that.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yes, this probably is why I wanted to do this series on hospitality now, because I wanted to talk about what we're doing, but because it's just really been on my heart as I come into this season of life. Dale and I, Farmer Dale, as I often call him, live on a beautiful farm in Southern Illinois. And my husband is still, very practicing farmer, working grain farm in Southern Illinois with corn and soybeans and wheat and some cattle and some different things. And it has just always been on my heart and his. We're always amazed when people do come to our farm, just the connection that they have to God and to creation and to just being out in the open. We hear things like, I can see the stars here. I can't see them in town, or your grass is so green, or they've never seen a wheat field or a cornfield, or never seen a cow up close and personal. And for us, we take so much for granted the beauty that surrounds us in God's creation. It's just part of the rhythm of life that we live. And so we've lived there for 44 years. My husband's lived there his entire life. We are a generational family farm, and we feel that it's time for us to open up what we call the real life farm experience a little bit. So we are offering a retreat in our small community where Lindsay and I live in Effingham, Illinois, or you can stay closer by if you'd like, and then coming out to the farm. That's about 15 miles from there and experiencing a retreat on the farm. And by retreat, I mean it will be a reflective time for you and an open time for you. We just want to welcome you into my home, literally. Nothing fancy, nothing special. And I used to really worry about that. Like, well, we don't have this or that, or, everything's not just this perfect hospitality. And I have worked through that and said, nope, just want to gather around the table for a conversation. It's a limited seats of only 6 because we do want to keep it small and intimate, and you can bring a friend with you. That's what I would encourage is travel together. But you can check that out if you are interested. You can drive in, you can fly in. We'd get you all the details, but we're offering one in September. Beautiful time to be here on the farm. And it's the 17th. I'm pretty sure it starts on a Thursday evening, goes through a Saturday, but you can find that out. We'll put it in the show notes, but it's at the
Yeah, I know that's going to be such an amazing experience. And just to receive that hospitality from you and Dale while also learning and growing and having space for your own self and for your life with God, it's just going to be a powerful experience. Well, it's been a great conversation, Teresa. And I just encourage again, like, what is one table maybe that you are already have in your life? Think about the next week, whether it's with your family or meeting up with a friend somewhere else. What is a table that you can invite some deeper conversation and just provide that welcoming space where someone feels safe, feels seen, and experiences the presence of Jesus? So make sure, check
Mm.
out our show notes. We have a free resource for you on hospitality that has some practical ideas and next steps you can take. And so we hope that you will take some of those and practice hospitality this week. So we will be back with a new episode in just a couple weeks. And thanks for joining us.